Hello everybody and welcome to this GCSE PE bite-sized video. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Sue Hartigan, who's the Chief Examiner and the Principal Examiner for GCSE PE Component 1, Fitness and the Body Systems. What we're going to be discussing today is how you can prepare your learners for this component. So, hi Sue and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I know that you'd like to offer some advice and help learners, candidates to maximise their performance on component 1. So I've got a few questions for you. So in order to prepare the learners for the exam, is terminology important when answering the exam questions?
Yes, it is, funnily enough. And one of the things I would say is there's masses of resources out there. And obviously a nice sort of breadth of resource is great for use with your students. But please, whichever resource you are using, please make sure that it uses the same terminology that's in the specification, because that's what we have to go by when we produce the mark schemes. So try to get your students to learn the correct terminology from the start of the course. Obviously, that'll help them become familiar with the required terms and reduce any temptation they might have to resort to sort of football pundit or colloquial terminology. Just as an example related to paper 1, muscles contract and relax. Try to get them to use that terminology rather than talking about muscles flexing or extending. That terminology needs to be linked to joints.
That's brilliant. That's a really good example. Thank you. And I know that in a few questions, candidates are asked to give examples. Is it enough just to name a sport in an example?
No, it's not. Unless, of course, the question asks for a specific named sport. Normally, questions will ask for an example from sport or a sporting activity. And therefore, it's best to give a specific movement or a specific technique. So, for example, give an example of the use of a second-class lever system. If a candidate just wrote down football, they wouldn't be credited. And the reason for that being that all 3 lever systems could be used at some point during football. So they would need to give a much more specific example. So what they could say is something like, when they take off from the floor to gain more height than the opposition so they can head the ball, that kind of thing. So much more detail, much more specific.
That's great. Thank you. And then just moving on, I know lots of teachers, lots of learners sort of want to be prepared for the extended writing questions, and they find that quite challenging. So how can teachers prepare their learners for the extended writing questions? What advice would you give?
First of all, if there's opportunity to look at past questions and mark schemes, it's really helpful possibly just to give a little bit of confidence to our learners. Each mark scheme will be laid out in the same way, and learners are going to be tested on their ability, on their knowledge of the specification topic, on their ability to apply that knowledge within the question scenario, and then to make some sort of judgments or evaluation. And they need to demonstrate all 3 of those skills in order to get the 9 marks. So very often we'll see responses that tell you absolutely everything from a knowledge perspective about a particular topic, but we are only allowed to credit that due to the sort of off-qual, the way the extended responses are set up. We are only allowed to credit that to a maximum of 3 marks, and that's indicated in the specification. In order to move into the next marking band, in order to get 4, 5, 6 marks, etc., there needs to be application and evaluation if they want to progress through the levels. So it's really important that they're not just factual responses. So as you cover each topic from the specification, try to encourage students to place facts in a variety of sporting contexts and to make judgments about the importance of each of the facts that they're given. So for example, they know that power is the ability to apply a large force quickly, but rather than finishing there, go on to say it's used in an explosive technique, for example, during a tennis serve or the drive in a sprint, and that's essential component of fitness for the tennis player, as it means the serve will be much harder for the opponent to return. So every fact that they kind of learn about the topic, if they get used to put it into some sporting context and then saying why that's important to that particular performer in that context, and that sort of practice all the way through is perfect preparation for these extended responses, and actually for 3-mark questions throughout the paper.
Thank you. So it's knowledge, it's then applying their knowledge and evaluating the statement that they've made. So if learners can think of knowledge, application and evaluation, they should be able to access the full marking range.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. And then just another question, is it only the 9-mark questions that require application and evaluation?
No, it's not. And in fact, I kind of alluded to it a little bit then. Any question that asks for an explanation or an analysis or justification. So it tends to be the questions that are 2-3 marks, and there's a sort of a paragraph required in response. All of those will expect more than just knowledge. If it's explained, they'll need to demonstrate knowledge, application, and some sort of relevance to the performer. So look out for that development of sort of statements all the way through the paper.
Brilliant. And when there is an evaluation question, are learners expected to always to be positive?
No. This will vary depending on the question. For example, if a question asks about the suitability of a specific fitness test for a particular performer, the evaluation would vary depending on the context. So for example, if the test was the 12-minute Cooper run and the performer was a high jumper, we'd expect a candidate to talk about what the Cooper run tested, what the high jumper needed in terms of components and fitness, and therefore make the sort of judgment that that's clearly not an appropriate test for that specific performer, because it tests cardiovascular fitness rather than what that performer needs.
Yeah, and I think you probably, in a way, alluded to the next question, whereas is it enough just to say something is not relevant? Okay, you've just answered that, where it's no.
No, absolutely right. It's not, and sort of anything that is not sort of state or identify or name that anything that is not a 1-mark question, anything that asks for, to say, the explanation or the justification, a judgment has to be made, but it has to be justified. So using that previous example, the 12-minute Cooper run test would not be suitable as it tests CV fitness, which has limited sort of value in the 100-meter sprint or in the high jump, whatever the event is, and that the high jumper would be better off doing a test of power. So it all the time, it's take a fact, apply it, and think about its relevance, think about whether it's important, not important, and then your learners will not go wrong on the 3 or the 9 mark questions.
That's brilliant. Thank you ever so much for all that advice, and that really helps teachers how to prepare learners for all questions from 1, 2, 3 marks up to the extended writing questions. So thank you very much, Sue. I just want to go through share some resources. We do have the past papers, mark schemes and examiners reports, and as already Sue has mentioned, it's really important to look at past papers, mark schemes and examiners report, and the examiners report really give lots of hints and tips on what went well and what maybe could be improved. Just remember, if you're looking at past exam papers, that the new format is that there will only be 1 extended writing question on paper 1 and 1 extended writing question on paper 2. So just take that in mind. We have got some guidance on extended writing questions, and there are some exemplar responses for the 9 mark paper. And of course, there is some past training courses that are online that you can have a look at. And finally, just for this term, we have got some training events coming up, the MOCS marking training that's on the 30th of October, and also the training for component 4 for the PEP. So if you haven't signed up, then please do sign up as soon as you can, because places are being taken up. And then just finally, if anyone does have any questions, if anyone does have any questions, okay, you can always book an appointment with me. I've set up some team meeting, and you can book an appointment at an appropriate time and ask any questions that you have. So thank you ever so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.